So yes guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another video. As you can see, we're out in the Porsche 911 base, and I always run this joke because it's just a 911, even though that isn't taking any credit away from it. This isn't a 4S, or it's not, I don't know, a GT3. It's a base Carrera, and this base actually runs today £97,000. Now, in terms of context, I collected this car, which I've done a video on, and I also drove this car to Wales, to the Black Mountain Pass. And even though it was a restricted road, as with all roads, they are restricted, I'm going to let you go so I can send it, Mr. Fiesta. I still had fun, which I hope would be the case in a car costing this much. Bearing in mind, I have driven the Cayman GTS 4.0, and that was something really serious. And by that I mean, if I was to spec a Cayman GTS 4.0, which is quicker than this car, even though it's not a 911, without being silly, it was around £80,000. Now, if I'm going to spec this to have things that I feel it needs, not things that I want, it comes out at £117,000. And I know it's a 911, I know it's a Porsche, so I don't mind those prices being high. But do you actually get that much more performance from this over the Cayman? Let's find out. So now what I actually have is the spec that I created for the base 911. So I'm just going to read that out quickly. Bearing in mind, again, this now retails stock at £97,000. So the first thing I would do is the paint. Don't get me wrong, the racing yellow is definitely a head turner. I've had loads of thumbs up and loads of attention, not that I need it, but it is nice to see people appreciate the car. And maybe it's the plate, because the plate, yes, is serious. As I was saying, the colour I'd go for is the green metallic. I believe it's called the Aventurine green, and that just looks really naughty. It looks like a paint to sample colour as well. That's what I would opt for. I'd also opt for the 21 inch setup as opposed to 1920. It does make the front end look very high, and to be honest, especially with the roads that I have around, I don't really mind having that much gap between the road and the bumper, because it just saves the bumper from getting scratched. But the arch gap is quite high. The next thing I feel that it's missing is the seats. Don't get me wrong, they are comfortable, but where these seats don't have any lumbar support, it kind of did become a problem for me. But what I did to counteract that, and I don't know if this is a tip, I turned the heated seats on and I was fine, because I do suffer with, I don't know, medium to low back pain at times. So not that they're not supportive, but I definitely feel going one step up on the seats would definitely be my cup of tea. I'd also opt for the sports design package, because don't get me wrong, this is a very pretty and a very nice looking car, but you can see on the front and the sides and on the rear it does look a tiny bit soft. So by adding the sports package, you get more aggressive front end, side skirts, and the rear end, the diffuser just kind of ties things in and really shows off that it is a force to be reckoned with. The other thing that I feel this is missing is the sports chrono package, and with that you'd get a little chrono clock on the dash there, and on the steering wheel here you'd have a little dial, because don't get me wrong, you do have these switches over here that allow you to go from wet, sport and normal, but it's nice to have that individual mode, and I believe there's an extra mode called Sports Plus, and along with that you'd also get tyre temps. You get tyre pressure, but you don't get tyre temps, and a few other sports gizmos that I feel it's missing. And with this being a 911, you definitely want to have that package. So now with the rear end, as I mentioned, not having any form of aggression to it, the tailpipes as well don't really show off anything. And if you look inside here, as is with many of the new cars, you can see two exhaust pipes in there, but nothing else. You've just got this oval design. And what I would opt for is the sports tailpipes, which makes the rear end look really aggressive. So I'd also opt for the PDLS, that's the Porsche Dynamic Light System Plus, simply because you get adaptive light. So when you're going around bends, the light adjusts, and I've got that on my own car, and I feel like a car of this value needs it as standard, and where they are going to be LED, you're going to get a lot more brightness on those winter evenings. Now what this car does have, which I would definitely recommend, is definitely parking sensors. Again, this is a Porsche. You don't really want to be scratching this or hitting anything when reversing or maneuvering out of spaces, so that would be something to always opt for, and that's park assist. This unfortunately doesn't have adaptive cruise control, it just has the plain and simple cruise control, which really works. It's nice and smooth. When you do go from, I don't know, 60 to 55, it doesn't just jump on the brakes, it brings it down quite smoothly. But adaptive cruise control along with the lane assist is something I feel that most modern cars have, and if you are going to be doing loads of road miles, it just allows you to enjoy the drive a bit more and relax a tiny bit more. Obviously you are going to be in control of the car, but it allows the car to brake and accelerate when needed in a safe manner, and it's just, I don't know, it's just something I feel it needs to have, and quite frankly I was surprised it doesn't, because again, this is a tourer, you're going to be doing loads of road miles, so why not? So there are a few bits that we would love to add, but would I take this car? Of course I would. More importantly, I would prefer it in a manual because it's 385 horsepower. It's not that powerful, bearing in mind there are some other cars, including my own, which are around 450, 500 brake horsepower mark. So it could do with being a manual, but they don't make this in a manual, so you'd have to take it for what it is. And the PDK, all the way to 7.5 RPM, is delightful. Also, in my previous video I met up with the big man, and before we actually went out, he previously has had this car, and he himself, Mr. Achilles, said, do you actually think it needs more power? Because I mentioned, I said, yeah mate, it could do with a bit more power, but we're at 30 miles an hour now, and we're coming up to this national speed limit area, and you can see second gear pull straight to 60, and you don't feel like you do need extra speed because you get there quickly enough, and once you do get there, you're back on the brakes, and you've got 4 piston brakes, front and rear, and then you can just go again. And all day, every day, you could have fun. And if you did have more power, then you're going to have more traction issues, bearing in mind this isn't a GT car. So if I'm being smart, I'd say no, but if you were to go on a road trip with a few of your mates and they had turbos or S's, you'd probably miss that extra 20, 30, 40 brake horsepower, but this is enough. This is definitely enough. Don't be a greedy little pig. So now we're back into a 30, I definitely want to touch upon comfort, and this definitely does that. So it's comfortable, don't get me wrong, I did a 300-400 mile journey to Wales and back, and there was no issues at all, but something that I would definitely recommend is the 14-way, and that's just a step over these standard sports seats if you do have back pain, and also just gives you a bit more of that adjustability. And also, while we're talking about comfort, I know it's not everybody's comfort, but when I'm on the motorway and I'm doing 70 or 63 miles an hour, I don't want that road noise. Not that there's loads, but I don't want it coming into the car. And the sound system on this isn't great, so definitely opt for the Bose, because you can blare your tunes, listen to that "It's My Life," or kick down and listen to this engine. But speakers wise, yeah, definitely. I said this in my last video, please don't hate me, Porsche, but yeah, stock system, you know what you're doing, you know what you guys are doing, you know you want everyone to press that button. And when you're inside it and you're in this moment of driving and happiness, you forget about all those options. Don't get me wrong, the only option that I really notice is that it only comes in a PDK, but other than that, I know I spent the whole video banging on about, oh, it needs this, or it needs that, and it needs this, and it needs that, but when you're on your twisties and you can just really enjoy this car. I think we've really got to stop calling it a base, because if you call it a base, you think it's not good enough. But ladies and gentlemen, definitely is. So guys, that has been the 3 videos on the Porsche 911 Carrera. There is going to be a couple more videos, not necessarily with this car, but with a couple of other Porsches. So comment on what Porsches you think it could be, or what you guys would like to see, because it's not over. I'm living the Porsche dream, and I don't ever want to wake up. I know it's quite corny to say that, but I am driving a Porsche after all, so don't really care. Take care, guys. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.